Welcome to the DataPoint Android Vegetation Data Collection software. This video will show you all of the time-saving and convenience features of DataPoint. A follow-up video will demonstrate how easily the data are exported and quickly processed using pivot tables in Excel. Just for reference, this video is produced using a Samsung Galaxy Tab 2 7-inch screen, which is actually an older device. Remember, you don't need a data connection to run DataPoint in the field, and DataPoint will run on all Android devices, including phones. So let's begin. When we start with the project screen, or the project view, and this is where all of the basic sample information is recorded. And as you can see, I've already got a lot of that information recorded for a project. But to start, let's create a new project so you can see how the whole process happens. So down here, these little triple dots on the left and right open up the menu. Down at the bottom of the screen, you can see there's also another menu button. But these items that you see on the screen are from older devices. Newer devices won't have these on your screen. There'll be external buttons usually below the screen. So this middle one is a home button. The return arrow kind of goes back one step, and then this shows you all the active programs that you have running in the background. So typically, to start with, once again, I'll click this. It'll toggle the menu off and on. And you see that our menu items are Project, Veg, GPS, Species, Set Path, and Help. I'll explain each of these sequentially, but let's start by creating a new project. So we'll click the Project button, and you can see we have additional menu items, including importing and exporting data. We have an Exit button. Purge will delete a particular project or area. Navigate shows you how to get to a particular project area or sample. And then here's where we create a new project. So let's start by creating a new project. So we'll give this project a name. We have to name the data file. And then we have to select a species list, lookup species list. Now DataPoint comes with one that's built in, but you'll be able to create your own, import and export, and then re-import any species list you like. So we'll start by using the drop down and picking what's already built in, and then we'll feed in the area. And then the sample ID we'll just call sample 1. Now before you can move on and enter veg data, you do have to enter your sampler ID. So I'll do that, and then I'll take away this keyboard so you can see the rest of the screen. And you see we have aspect, slope in degrees, slope percent, and orientation. So aspect would be the slope of the hill you're on. So that's more northerly facing. And typically for slope, most clinometers measure in degrees, and yet percent is what you can sort of think of to understand slope better. So if we enter slope here, we just click away, and you see it automatically fills in slope as a percent. And then orientation, if you have a line transect, you can feed in orientation. And now you see we've got easting, northing, and elevation. Now you can feed that in directly, but most devices, including even this old Samsung, have a built-in GPS unit. So you have to turn on the GPS unit, and sometimes it's just called location. Then open up your menu and see that we have GPS. And just so you know, my device is actually sitting outside, so it's picking up real satellites. Tell it to start. It can take a minute. And see that you've got your lat longs and your elevation. And you have a choice of recording the information as degrees, minutes, seconds, decimal seconds, or degrees, minutes, decimal minutes. So let's start with degrees, minutes, seconds, decimal seconds. So we'll click that and see that that's automatically filled in. And then we can also add comments. So we'll clear the keyboard, and now we can go to the veg screen. Now on the veg screen, liter will always be an item at the top. It doesn't have to have any value, but it's a standard item. So now that you want to enter information, we go back to the menu, and we have some more options here. Data will give you the options for saving and going back to the project screen. Add is a shortcut to quickly get to add species. So let's start there. So you can feed in a letter or two, hit the search button, this little magnifying glass. It'll produce your list, and I want you to notice something. There's two columns here. There's a SPE name and scientific name. SPE name can include synonyms. So for example, if you're looking for Acer negundo, there it is, but that's a synonym for Negundo acerioides. When you click this item and select, it'll feed in the currently accepted name. So let's add another one and show you that again. We'll feed in a different letter, do a search. So on the left are accepted names and synonyms. And when you pick something on the left, the item on the right is what's filled in. So let's pick another one that's a synonym, but here's the accepted name. We hit select, and you can see that the correct name has been put in. So very quickly, let's add about 4 more species just so you can see that whole process. And if you feed in a couple of letters, it'll filter things down a little bit quicker. So we'll just add one more species. So now that we have our species list, the data can be collected in multiple ways. You can see right now at the top of this column it says down. And over here we have DWU, which stands for down with up, and up. What this was designed for is to be able to collect data under a tree canopy. So if you're collecting data in the upward direction, you would click the up button and that data would be recorded in the up. If you have an up hit, anything under that tree canopy can be recorded as down with up, meaning it's vegetation data that occurs under a tree canopy. Or you can just go down. Now 90% or more of data are just going to be down, but you have this additional flexibility for collecting more complicated data sets. Now this was designed for point intercept, which you typically are incrementing each value by 1. So by simply clicking the plus, you can increment each value by 1. But DataPoint is designed for more than just that. It can be used for plot data as well. So if we hit the menu, we have something called mode. And right now, we're in a point mode, as you see down here at the bottom. But we can also be in a plot or a line transect mode. I'm going to start by hitting the plot line timer, and I'll explain that in a second. I'm setting the time fairly low on this timer. And then I'm going to set the mode to plot and line. And let's say you wanted to have a value, say you've got a plot and you've got a certain species there for about 25%. Rather than having to click this button 25 times in a row, you can just press and hold until it scrolls up to the value you want, and you can correct it. Okay, and let's say we've got another one with 10%. And the values are all tallied at the top of the screen. So if you're supposed to be adding up to 100%, you'll be able to see that value and verify it. Now, having these species lists is great. And like I said, you can go in the up or the down with up. And just to help you kind of understand that concept, we have a help button here. And we actually have a diagram that will explain some of those concepts to you. So if you're under a tree canopy, you've got up and down with up. If you don't have a tree canopy, it's all down data. And if you're under tree canopy, up and down with up. And also you'll notice we have something called first and second hits. First hit would be the first top canopy, and second hit would be everything under that. So let's go back. And you can see we've got a I hit or a one hit and our second hits. And that's important because if you're collecting data and all you're recording is the top canopy, there can be a lot of things underneath that top canopy that are important, but this gives you an opportunity to record that. So if you've got something there with a certain amount of understory under the top canopy, you can record that and then process that later. So here we've collected our data. Note that you may not always have a species you want on the existing list. You do have the ability to go and add a new accepted species name or a new synonym for a previously accepted name. And I won't go through that, but you have those options. And then here once again is add a new species, and then here's where I can add a 0.1 value. And the 0.1 values are simply meant to be a way to record when a species is present but doesn't have a full percent. Say you're doing a large transect and you've got a lot of things that are less than 1%. This is how you would record those. So right now I'm in the down with up, so let's go back to the down and let's add a species. So let's say we're going to add Festuca arizonica, and it's just present. I can select that 0.1 value right from here. So we'll know that it was present, but it had less than 1%. So now that we're done collecting this sample, we have a few choices. Oh, and we can sort the data. So the data can be sorted on multiple factors. It can be sorted alphabetically on species, on growth form, so you can have trees first and herbaceous species last, or the reverse of that. And then on value in species. So let's click that, and you'll see that the things you hit the most float to the top. So if you've got a long species list, the things you keep needing to record the most can be forced to the top of the list. And it's very easy to quickly scroll to the bottom of a list. It scrolls very fast, so you can get to the bottom species quite easily. Let's go back to our menu. We've already discussed mode and touched help. So now we're going to save this data. And we have some options. We can save the data, start a new sample, and duplicate this list without having to repeat the process we've just gone through. Or we can save and start a new sample with a brand new list. Or we can just go to the project, save the data, and go to the project screen. So let's use this top one. We're going to save the data, we're going to start a new sample, and we're going to duplicate this list. So it's saving the data. We have to put in a new sample ID. Once again, we have to record the sampler, and that's part of a drop-down list now. Let's clear the screen, the keyboard, and let's go to Veg. And you can see that we've already got our list up and ready to go, or we can be adding information to that. So that is an especially handy feature of DataPoint. So let's just end that. We're just going to go to project with a save. And now I'm going to show you how you can navigate to different projects and such. This drop-down box, when you click that drop-down box, it's going to show you your different projects. So let's go to project 1. That was the one we started with. And you can have different areas for a particular project. And right now we only have one area, but you can very easily create another area under a particular project. So you go to Project, New Area, enter a sample ID, enter our sampler, and we're good to go. So that's basically how you would navigate to the different samples if you need to get back to something. Let's see, we've already been to GPS. Species, this is how you import. Okay, you can also import the growth form. I'll show you that DataPoint can sort your data by growth form. So the data include growth form information. So you can have all the trees at the top and herbaceous species at the bottom, or any way you want. And that is sorted according to this form table. And here's where you can import species tables and export species tables. And note that it says internal memory or external memory. And then drop species table will allow you to delete a table that you're no longer using. But there's a safety built in so that it won't delete that species table if it's being used by any of your data sets that are currently in DataPoint. So that's what species is used for. And then set path. Let me open up that. Now set path will let you actually set, when you save your data, where it's going to go. So you can set the internal path, and then you can also set the external SD card path. On older versions of Android, you can actually set that to a specific folder. On newer versions, it's preset. There's higher security on newer Android devices, so that's preset, but you can export your data to an SD card, and that's something you can't do on Apple devices. And as anyone knows, you can drop and break your device. It's nice to have all your data exported somewhere safe on a little chip that you can pull out later. So I'm just going to click OK. And what we're going to do is go to Veg, add one species to this. And then give it a value. Then save and go to the project screen. Okay, what we're going to do right now is we're going to go back to Area 1, where we have a fair amount of data. And what we're going to do is export the data. And we're going to export the data to the external SD card. And you can either do the current project or just the current area. So we're going to do the current project, which will include all areas. So it lets you give this thing a name, and you can time stamp it if you are saving it multiple times during the day. And we'll hit save. Do I want to replace it? Yes. It tells you how many records in the path to your data. So that pretty much covers the basic functions of DataPoint, with the convenience of being able to use synonyms, replicate your species list, and utilize your built-in GPS, and then export your data to either internal or external memory. So let's go back to our screen. And then this is just to let you know that there will be a separate video produced that'll show you how to export your data from your device to a desktop computer, and then how to process it. So please feel free to give me a call or contact me if you have any questions, and it's shown on the bottom of this screen. So thank you very much for your time.